Somewhere in a climate-controlled vault at Yale University, there is a book that has defeated every person who has ever tried to read it. Cryptographers who cracked Nazi codes during World War II, linguists who speak dozens of languages, artificial intelligence systems trained on every known human writing system, medieval scholars who have dedicated their entire careers to a single document. All of them failed. The Voynich Manuscript is 240 pages long. It is filled with an unknown script that appears nowhere else in human history, illustrations of plants that don't exist in nature, diagrams of astronomical systems nobody has identified, and drawings of naked figures in strange green pools that no one has been able to explain. It was written sometime between 1404 and 1438. We know this because of carbon dating. Everything else, who wrote it, what language it's in, what it means and why it was created, remains completely unknown. This is the story of the most mysterious book ever found, and the obsession it created. The manuscript gets its name from Wilfrid Voynich, a Polish book dealer who claimed to have purchased it in 1912 from a Jesuit college in Italy. Voynich immediately recognized that he had found something extraordinary. The writing was unlike anything he had ever seen. The illustrations were unlike anything in any known medieval text. And tucked inside the manuscript was a letter, dated 1666, from a Bohemian doctor named Georg Baresch to a famous scholar named Athanasius Kircher. In that letter, Baresch described the manuscript in terms that should sound familiar. He called it a puzzle that had tormented him for years. He said he had spent decades trying to decode it and had gotten nowhere. He was writing to Kircher because Kircher was the most famous codebreaker and linguist in Europe at the time, a man who had successfully deciphered Egyptian hieroglyphics. Kircher apparently never responded, or if he did, the response hasn't survived. That letter tells us something important. By 1666, the manuscript was already old and already unsolved. Someone had already been staring at it for decades without making progress. Whatever secrets it contained had already survived at least one serious attempt to unlock them. Voynich brought the manuscript to the United States and began showing it to experts. The reaction was always the same: fascination, confusion, and eventually defeat. In 1969, Voynich's widow donated it to Yale University, where it has lived ever since, catalogued as MS-408, sitting in the Beinecker Rare Book and Manuscript Library, available for researchers to examine but stubbornly refusing to give up its secrets. The manuscript is divided into sections, each with a different visual theme. The herbal section is the largest. It contains illustrations of plants, hundreds of them, alongside blocks of text. The problem is that almost none of the plants can be identified. Some look vaguely like real species, others appear to be composites, a root from one plant, leaves from another, flowers from a third, that don't correspond to anything that grows on Earth. Botanists have spent decades searching for matches. They've found very few convincing ones. The astronomical section contains circular diagrams that look like star charts or calendars. Some have figures around the edges. Some appear to show the sun, moon, and what might be constellations, but the constellations don't match any known system. The biological section is perhaps the most unsettling. It shows dozens of small naked figures, almost all female, bathing in a network of pools and tubes connected by elaborate pipe systems. The figures are drawn in a simple, almost childlike style. Nobody knows what they represent. Medical diagrams, alchemical processes, religious symbolism, something else entirely. Every theory has been proposed and none has been proven. The pharmaceutical section shows jars and containers alongside more unidentifiable plants. And then there is the text itself, written in a fluid, confident hand, left to right across every page with no obvious corrections or hesitations. Whoever wrote this knew exactly what they were writing. They were not making it up as they went. This is not the work of someone confused or composing. This is someone transcribing something they knew completely. The first serious attempt to decode the Voynich manuscript came from William Friedman, arguably the greatest cryptanalyst in American history. Friedman cracked the Japanese purple cipher during World War II, a feat that many considered impossible. He spent years working on the Voynich manuscript. He got nowhere. In the 1970s, a team of specialists from the U.S. National Security Agency, the organization responsible for America's most classified code-breaking operations, took a run at it. They had access to tools and techniques that didn't exist in Friedman's time. They also got nowhere. What makes this so baffling is that statistical analysis of the Voynich text shows it is not random. It follows patterns consistent with real language. The letter frequencies, the word lengths, the way certain symbols cluster together. All of it behaves the way a genuine written language behaves. This is not gibberish. This is not someone scribbling meaningless symbols to create the appearance of a book. Something is encoded in those pages. The analysis is unambiguous about that. But what? In 2004, a researcher named Gordon Rugg proposed what became known as the Voynich hoax theory. Rugg suggested the manuscript could have been created using a simple grid system, a table of syllables combined with a sliding mask, that would produce text with realistic language statistics while being entirely meaningless. He demonstrated he could produce Voynich-like text in a few weeks using only tools available in the medieval period. This would explain everything, except for one problem. Nobody has been able to prove it, and the more closely researchers examine the text, the more it appears to be too internally consistent to be a hoax. Real languages have deep structure, patterns within patterns that are almost impossible to fake. The Voynich text appears to have that structure, which means either it's a real language or whoever created the hoax was so sophisticated they accidentally created something that looks like a real language. Neither explanation is comforting. Over the past century, researchers have proposed dozens of explanations for the Voynich manuscript. Here are the most serious ones. The unknown language theory holds that the manuscript is written in a genuine but completely undocumented language, possibly an extinct dialect, a constructed language created specifically for this text, or a language from a culture whose other records haven't survived. This would explain the consistent internal structure. It would also explain why no translation has ever worked. You can't translate a language you've never encountered before. The cipher theory holds that the manuscript is a known language, probably Latin or an early European vernacular, encrypted using a method that hasn't been cracked. Medieval ciphers could be remarkably sophisticated. Some researchers believe a polyalphabetic substitution cipher could produce text with exactly the statistical properties the Voynich text displays. The problem is that no proposed cipher has produced a coherent translation. The steganography theory suggests the real message isn't in the text at all. It's hidden in the illustrations, or in specific patterns of letters, or in some visual element that hasn't been identified yet. The text could be a deliberate distraction. The glossolalia theory, one of the stranger proposals, suggests the manuscript was written by someone in a religious or mystical trance state, producing text that felt meaningful to the writer but encoded no actual information. Some researchers have pointed to similarities between the Voynich script and other examples of automatic writing. And then there is the hoax theory, that the whole thing was created as an elaborate forgery, either to sell to a wealthy collector or as some kind of intellectual prank. Every single one of these theories has serious problems. Every single one has serious supporters. After more than a century of study, the field has not converged on a consensus. If anything, the more tools researchers bring to bear on the manuscript, the more complex and contradictory the picture becomes. In 2019, a team of researchers from the University of Alberta used artificial intelligence to analyze the Voynich manuscript. Their AI identified statistical patterns suggesting the underlying language might be Arabic or Hebrew, written without vowels, a practice common in medieval Semitic writing. Using this as a starting point, they produced tentative translations of a few words. The words they identified were things like farmer, air, and fire, suggestive but not conclusive, and most scholars in the field were unimpressed. In 2022, a researcher named Gerard Cheshire published a paper claiming he had fully decoded the manuscript, identifying the language as a lost Proto-Romance language and translating several pages. His translation described herbal remedies and women's health. The academic response was devastating. Linguists and manuscript scholars queued up to dismantle his methodology, and the journal that published his paper faced significant criticism for doing so. As of today, no AI system, no research team, and no individual scholar has produced a translation that has been accepted by the broader academic community. The Voynich manuscript remains unread. After 600 years, after the greatest codebreakers in history, after artificial intelligence, after everything, the book still hasn't told us what it says. Here is what we know for certain about the Voynich manuscript. It is real, it is old, it was written by someone who knew exactly what they were doing. It contains internal patterns consistent with genuine language. It has survived 6 centuries, multiple wars, the dissolution of empires, and the deaths of everyone who might have known what it meant. And it has never been read. Think about what that means for a moment. Every other mystery we've discussed on this channel has at least a partial answer. We know roughly what happened to the Mayans. We know roughly how the pyramids were built. We know roughly what destroyed the Library of Alexandria. The Voynich manuscript gives us nothing, not a word, not a name, not a single confirmed meaning in 240 pages of text. Whoever wrote it either created the most sophisticated cipher in human history, or spoke a language so completely lost that no trace of it survives anywhere else on Earth, or produced something that looks exactly like language but encodes nothing at all, and we still can't tell which one. The book sits in its vault at Yale, climate-controlled, perfectly preserved, patient, waiting for someone smart enough to read it. We haven't found that person yet.